Welcome to the intersection of technology, cybersecurity, and society. Welcome to ITSP Magazine Podcast Radio. You're about to listen to an episode of Through the Tech Vine. So be quiet, pay attention, and get inspired. There is one truth that is not told enough. Technology is not magic, but it can be magical. Technology is human. It is part of who we are, our evolution, our future. Will it be a dystopian or utopian one? Well, that is up to us and nobody else. Knowledge is power, now more than ever. Blue Lava is the first business platform for CISOs to manage their security program. Blue Lava guides security leaders to effectively measure, optimize, and communicate their security program with confidence and ease in one platform. Learn more at bluelava.net.
And here we are, right on time, almost.
Look at us.
Look at us.
On time.
Look at us. Even if you're on a podcast, just look at us. Look at the radio. Look at your phone. Look at your smart assistant, whatever. Look at it. Unless you're driving, in that case, please
look at the road.
Look at the road.
Or autonomous, they can look whatever they want.
That's right.
That'd be great. It's like read a book and do your things while you're going to work. Or you can just get a train, and we already have that.
Have you ever been next to somebody on the highway that's not waiting for the autonomous vehicle before they start reading their book or the newspaper? Like, you ever know that? I'll drive by somebody and they're like, they got the pages in front of them. I'm like, is that safe?
Yeah, but we have a problem with giving the okay to autonomous vehicles. But we're letting these idiots drive? Okay, good.
So I'm renting a car right now, and the car feels the need to send this really loud, obnoxious, audible alarm to let me know that the car ahead of me has started to move. I don't know if that's common, but that seems...
Started to move?
It's moving away from me. So therefore, I should stop looking at my phone. I think it's assuming I'm doing. And
how about you're about to slam into the car? Because that'd be more important.
That'd be a good thing to know.
Whatever.
My car has that though.
Does it?
Oh yeah.
If you're too close, it tells you to brake, or if you leave the lane.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it comes up with it's a sound and a visual. So yep.
But does it actually tell you to move because the car in front of you is moving?
No, just
right.
Just the the warning about somebody braking or something like that. Yep.
The lane indicators can be really frustrating. Like
that is frustrating as well. Yeah.
Yeah, because I live in a town that's was established a long time. Northeast rurally town, and a lot of the roads are very narrow. They just barely are enough for cars to go on either side. So people are always, somebody puts their mailbox out in the middle of the road for a couple of days because they're for whatever reason, and you're constantly kind of having to shift around because the roads are so narrow. And yeah, it's like, sometimes it's just like I'm like,
yeah. Mine does that when I don't have my hands on the steering wheel, because it's supposed to keep the line, but as soon as you leave it like for 20 seconds, like, yep, you have to take control because it's not at level 4 or anything, right? So it's not autonomous completely. So they still want you to have your hands on the wheel. And Jim Morrison has been telling you that for a long time with the doors.
Keep your eyes on the road.
And your hands upon the wheel.
Upon the wheel. There you go. So are we going to be rude, or are we going to introduce our guest? Because the people watching us, they already know. They see the name. They see a big red, like bright red shirt. Sixers. There you go. And the person behind that, and in front of a lot of books, it's Tracy Infosec Sherpa Maleeff.
Yes.
Welcome.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me. Yes, I'm Tracy Maleeff, also known as Infosec Sherpa, and I am a security researcher with the Krebs Stamos Group, and I'm thrilled to be here today. And I am representing my hometown, Philadelphia 76ers, and a very big game tonight, so I'm very excited.
What kind of game? What are the 76ers? What do they play?
Basketball.
Oh, okay.
Table tennis.
It's basketball, right?
And it's basketball, and it's a big game because so if you don't know about sports, this will mean nothing to you, but it's Ben Simmons' return to Philadelphia. He was a problematic player, to say it politely, with the Sixers, and now he is returning with his new team. And if you know anything about Philadelphia sports fans, we are just welcoming and hospitable. So it's going to be a fun evening. That was very sarcastic. It's going to be chaos. But I'm very excited to watch the chaos on television. So.
Yeah, I think so. I'm from New England, and I think I heard you hear things, right? And when Tom Brady came back to play, I think that was a big, sort of a similar thing, a big deal with football.
Oh, sure, yeah, and
the other end of the spectrum, though, I think, right, Tracy?
Well, I mean, I think a lot of Patriots fans were not happy with him leaving.
No,
but there's also
right.
Yeah, so but it is different, because Ben really he really turned on the fans when we did support him initially. So but this isn't a sports talk, so I won't get into that. But
I'm interested in the team
now. Marco, does this match up with the script?
Oh, yeah.
We forgot the script again.
Let me show you the script.
39
it's a white piece of paper. So honestly, Tracy, whatever you want to talk about.
There really is an interesting intersection between tech and sports, actually, and actually cybersecurity more so, because a lot of these players need to be educated on, locking down their accounts or not locking them down, because a lot of, that's part of their brand, right? And endorsements and things like that. So you figure, okay, an athlete will likely be verified, right? If they're a big enough, caliber athlete, likely have to keep things open because it's part of their brand and other revenue streams and things like that. But to educate them on, hey, if somebody DMs you a link for something, be careful about that or what that means. And they're most very likely prone to catfishing and other sort of social engineering. So there's a lot to do with that. And then in the arena too, my husband and I go to a lot of basketball games, a lot of Sixers games. There's just QR codes everywhere. There's all kinds of, and again, I don't want to get into the whole QR debate. I know they aren't inherently bad, but again, it's just one of those things. They put a giant QR code up on the screen in the arena, and I know it goes to a legitimate Sixers site, but in my mind too, I was like, wow, that'd be a really wonderful way to, to get a lot of people on board, like all the Super Bowl ads and things like that. So it's a really interesting intersection between tech and cybersecurity and sports that I don't think a lot of people really bring up or talk about. I know a lot of sports teams. I actually know one or two people who work for sports teams as cybersecurity analysts. Because you figure they have to keep, their website up, they have to keep their physical security and all the other security too. And a fun thing that I learned about someone I knew who worked for a baseball team was that she actually had to work during the games, which initially I thought, like thinking of threat models, I thought that maybe that wasn't something like that she'd have to do. I thought maybe it would be like a typical 9 to 5, but then it dawned on me. I was like, well, yeah, like somebody, if they wanted to disrupt a game, that would be the opportunity to do it while things were playing and, maybe taking over the website or, something like that. So I was just surprised when she said how she worked every game and then, thought about threat model. I was like, oh, right. That makes sense. Okay. So that's probably another topic that I'd like to get into, maybe as a conference talk or something, because I do love sports, and I think there's a lot of tech and security that I don't think we really talk about necessarily.
Well, maybe that would be a good conversation on one of our channel podcasts, with the society one or the cybersecurity one, because
that'd be great.
I mean, it's incredible how we don't think about this, and we are so involved in our everyday life. But then when you have such a big echo chamber, I mean, it just scared me when you said about the barcode. What if like 60,000 people just scan that and that's been hacked, and all of a sudden like something really bad happened? It's kind of like an amplifier for everything. That's
isn't that also called? And it's a not a water cooler attack, like the water pond.
Watering hole. It's a
That's
watering
it.
hole attack.
Watering
Yeah.
hole. That's it. Yeah, yeah. So basically, yeah. In my mind, I see the QR code up on the screen of the arena, and even though I forgot the term, I knew what I meant. I was like, yeah, that's a great way to do a watering hole attack. So, yeah, the other thing I was going to mention too is that I don't think people think about is the how crucial cybersecurity is for these teams as it relates to their financial value. And I remember explaining this to
Yeah.
someone recently because I said, okay, you could really tank the value of a team if somebody compromised their Twitter, for example, their like verified millions of followers Twitter, and said that they were trading their star player, or
Right.
or something like that. And if you don't follow sports, maybe that's a little hard to comprehend, but like that could really do a lot of things for that could cause sponsors to get alarmed. That could have a lot of financial and
Yeah.
reputational ramifications for a sports team that I think that people really need to factor in when they're doing assessments of organizations like that.
Yeah. And that applies on other brands. I mean, the value of
Oh yeah,
being
yeah, for sure. But I
cybersecure.
think that
Yeah.
people forget that it applies to sports teams.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
There is
that
a
I
lot of money there. That's what we
Yeah,
need
there's
to
so much
remember.
Yeah,
money
there is.
involved and everything.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I mean, I know that people realize that for, big name brands, but I feel like, especially if you're not into sports, you kind of have a blind eye towards the the crucial parts of cybersecurity and tech as it relates to a sports team. So again, as a sports fan, yeah, if my favorite soccer slash football, I'm gonna say football for our international listeners. I cheer for a Premier League team, Everton. Represent, go Blues, go Toffee. So if Everton, had their Twitter handle compromised and they tweeted out, that they were doing a lot of crazy moves and things like that, yeah, not only would upset the fan base, that would just cause all kinds of damage. So yeah, it's very interesting. And I do have a funny social media story as it refers to a Premier League football soccer team. A couple years ago, Manchester City did a Twitter chat, and every time they did the Twitter chat, they would use the hashtag ask and then the player's first name. So say it was, he didn't play for them, but say Ronaldo, it would be like hashtag ask Ronaldo. Well, this player they picked one time, his first name was Jesus. And if you know Spanish, you know that Jesus is spelled and looks like the English, word Jesus. So for the hashtag Ask Jesus was trending because of their Twitter chat, and some of the queries were kind of funny. It was things like how can you score so many goals and walk on water at the same time, and things like that. So fortunately, in that case, nothing bad happened because people were just having like good fun with it. Nothing, I didn't see any outrage. It was just kind of a funny thing, but that's all it's just all it takes is one thing to go terribly wrong and you're sinking a brand. So yeah, so that's and thus concludes my TED talk about sports and cybersecurity.
Did anybody ask for advice and then say, because we want to know what Jesus would do?
I don't know. I didn't follow
What
it
would
that
Jesus
closely
do?
when it was happening. I saw all of it after the fact, and when I was a librarian at the time, and I remember working it into a lot of my Twitter talks that I would give. I used to give a lot of talks at librarian conferences about advanced research tips and advanced use for Twitter. And when I would talk about doing research on Twitter, I'd always bring up that as an example of if you're going to do things like have a Twitter chat or put things out there, like you know, double check what the hashtag is,
Mm.
for some practical things like, make sure it's not someone else in use somewhere else or to mean something else. Um, I mean, I think there's probably been white papers written about all these kinds of faux pas. There was a trending hashtag when Margaret Thatcher died, and it was just Thatcher died. But if you read it a different way, it said that Cher died. Cher, the
Oh,
singer. Yeah.
that
So
Cher died.
yeah,
Yeah.
that Cher
Okay.
died.
Yeah.
What's another one? There's also been some just really terrible ones that have blown up in the faces of organizations that maybe they didn't understand what the hashtag meant. And I can't remember what the hashtag was, but it was a couple of years ago. And it was something um, to speak up against domestic abuse. And a pizza company saw it, and I don't think they knew what it was about. And they put this tweet out, and it was very insensitive. And it really came across very poorly, because someone who was manning that account, or womaning that account, steering that account, clearly didn't understand what that hashtag meant. So there's a lot of things you have to be mindful of.
You know, that even before the internet, there was a lot of example in marketing and where you do an advertising campaign, where especially if it's international, you need to be careful, because sometimes there is a double meaning. Sometimes they use a word. There was a famous one about back in I think it was in the 70s or 80s, about the Nova car.
I was going to say that doesn't go.
Which also in Spanish means nova, means new. So, I mean, I can see that, but also you can break it in nova. But I mean, honestly, you just can't think it over. But I agree with you. A little bit of research, especially when you're posting to millions of people in the audience, that will be definitely advised. That's why I don't let Sean use the ITSP magazine account, because I never know. No, he's not. He's not allowed. What's up with you? Why are you wearing a hat? I mean, a hood. Are you a hacker?
Are you cold?
I'm hacking today.
You're hacking today. What are you hacking today?
I'm hacking news. No, it's interesting, because I think what we're talking about is it's all perspective, right? Everybody has their own perspective, and I think we're presented with information, and we can choose to take it at face value or apply our own perspective or our own bias to the data and come up with our own conclusions that may have nothing to do or have no results or impact like it was intended to. And I'm not going to use this for my news, so I'll go ahead and bring it up. But there's an old article about analyzing World War II planes, where they're looking at where the planes were shot.
Right. I love that one.
Yeah.
And actually realizing it's where they didn't come back safely, right? That it was the data that they couldn't see that was really the data they should have been looking for. And so having that perspective to know what to look for and how to analyze it, I think is also interesting.
Yeah, it's like I think on your face, but you thought it in a different way.
Right.
Like, oh, look, that's where all the holes are. So we need to play that part.
Yep.
But those are the ones that came back. So you need to play the other parts.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's not my news today, but it was very connected to this.
No, you burned it.
You burned your news. I'll burn my news. Damn it.
Yeah, sorry.
Where's the social handle? I need to.
You're so unforgiving, Marco.
I need to log in and complain on social media that Marco.
But that is a good point. Information literacy is actually a talk that I've created. I'm going to be giving it at B-Sides Charm, actually. It's information literacy makes for better information security. And again, using library science to help people, better understand all the information they're seeing. And this timing is great. I mean, unfortunately, the timing is good, because there's such a prominent real life example of what's going on. And I know it's a little bit more work, and it's easy just to like and retweet something, but and it's hard. I see it too. I see a photo that I feel like might, cheer someone up. You might find one of those rare photos from Ukraine that's really heartwarming and give people hope. But I have to stop myself. Like, you don't know. That might be an old photo, or that could be a doctored photo, or it could be something. So I get it. I mean, I get the urge that you want to try to share news or share a good sentiment or something. But I've created this talk to try and help people walk through that, because I worked for many years in a law firm library. So I had to be very sure that anything I passed along could ultimately be admissible in court, for example. I never knew what information I was handing over was actually going to be used or not. So I couldn't risk it. I couldn't just, I had to make sure that everything I handed over, I could somehow back up and, verify what source it came from and things like that. That's why I am very adamant when things are published online. I love to see the date and the time. Not all publications do that. Um,
Yeah.
and date and time very clearly. I hate when I have to search for it. Sometimes I even have to look at the source code on a website because there will be no indication when this thing was published. So I'll go, and I guess that's what, breaking the law in Missouri. Is that where that that was? Um, but I shouldn't have to look at a source code to know when your article was posted. And that actually seems a little suspicious to me, that you're not putting a date and time to something, because that's context, right? If you publish something, uh, if you publish something before, say, the invasion of Ukraine, um, that would, and like that would make sense then, or like if you posted something after, like I like to have context of when these articles were posted, because that also kind of gives you an idea of, okay, well, this, they posted it then, okay, but X didn't happen yet, so they wouldn't have had that information in there, so that's on. So then let me look for something after this date, because then that information would have been out there. So that's kind of how I think of, okay, let me judge if when these things were posted, and figure out if it's really the best source.
And that's why I love librarians so much. And I'm going to pass so we can start with the first news to Diana. But there is one quote that I think Tracy, but it's from one of my favorite writer, Neil Gaiman. And he said, Google can bring you back 100,000 answers, and a librarian can bring you back the right one.
I thought you were going to say his other famous quote that has a curse word in it. About
I went with this one. It's much shorter, but it's very relevant to what you said, because it's
absolutely,
I mean, at the end of the day, it's not the quantity; it's
the quality.
For
sure. There's a librarian joke that nobody knows that all the dead bodies are buried on page 2 of Google results. And the other one I love is there's a coffee mug that says, "Please don't confuse your Google search with my Master's of Library and Information Science degree."
Exactly.
Yeah, like I hate that when people are like, "Well, I looked it up," and I'm like,
"Yeah, it's on the internet."
Like, yeah, I have a master's degree that I had classes where literally all we did was do research, and we were graded on how we did research. It didn't matter if the answer was right or wrong. I mean, to a degree, but I mean, it was like kind of like showing your work in math. I had master's level classes where I had to show my research work, and I would be graded on each step. I mean, that's the kind of training librarians go through. And it's very important to me. And I don't always get it right, because I'm human. And sometimes emotion takes over. So that's why I've been trying to really resist the urge to retweet things on Twitter. And it's hard, well, especially now. But I just do my best, and I try to help people along the way. But man, if you try to tell someone that they're spreading misinformation, boy, do they not like that.
Yep.
And I'm not going to name any names, but some of them are Infosec professionals that I've had to kind of, privately say to them, like, hey, you posted that thing and it's not true. And here's some other, resource. And I'm told to mind my own business and back off. And I'm like, okay, sorry for trying to help. So.
Yep. And Diana, do animals reshare information that they get without understanding it? Like whales, trees, tomatoes,
lima beans.
Yes.
They do. And that actually is the
no way.
way. So that leads us to the news that Marco and I are bringing jointly, because it really it fits right into the kinds
you're
of
ganging up on us.
Well, that's why my nickname is what Diana said.
Yeah.
So it's actually, we came across this in Wired, and it's a book that's being published by Princeton University Press, written by Justin E.H. Smith, called "The Internet is Not What You Think It Is: A History of Philosophy, a Warning." And he's put this excerpt out in Wired, and I have read the excerpt twice. It's extraordinarily dense. There's tons of ideas in here. So let me just preface this up front, that please go and read this article. We're going to, obviously, as we always do, post the link, because I'm sure I'm going to not have grokked some of these properly, and it's really just more for a conversation, but it's really dense and really thoughtful piece that it kind of looks at two things. One is, what is a technical advancement? What really advances society? Which is an interesting topic that I've been thinking about, even like this week. For anybody that's watching, I love a soap opera. I love a good soap opera, which means I love The Gilded Age right now, which is a Julian Fellows soap opera. He did the Downton Abbey, so they're really great soap opera. This Gilded Age is about folks obviously in the Gilded Age, late 1800s in New York. And this week they went to the New York Times building to see it lit up by Thomas Alva Edison, because electricity didn't exist. Like it wasn't harnessed. Obviously it existed, sorry, but it wasn't harnessed the way that we use it now. And so this was a big advance. They didn't have to use like the coal gas to light the lamps in the house, which also just makes my lungs hurt a little sometimes when I think about that.
It was a good episode. The Gilded Age. It was a good episode. Yeah.
They're all. Julian Fellows knows how to stir the drama. But so thinking about what's a true advancement, when we harness electricity, what's changed, and he's looking at it with the internet. So what it has advanced, and then also what actually what is an actual advancement versus what just sort of organic. And do we need to think differently about what humans build and create as artifice versus what nature is doing already, and how do those intersect, and can we separate them even? And as Marco pointed out, one of the things that he brings up in this, the author brings up in this piece, is about he's talking about sort of networks and things like Wi-Fi and telecommunications between entities like elephants, when they just use their feet to push down, to stomp, and that the vibrations get to other elephants far away. His argument is that's a form of telecommunication. And you know what? It is. Lima beans, what they do is they use airborne rhizobacteria to send chemical information to conspecifics, to other like lima beans and stuff across larger distance, which then triggers in these conspecifics defense-related gene changes. So it's not just, oh, here's something that's going on, but it's, here's something that's going on. I'm going to communicate it to you so you can change your actual like gene expression to be better able to deal with this change, which is kind of mind-blowing. And it's true that is that's a complex network. And then he also talks about the wood wide web, which if you look at forests, they're incredibly interconnected networks. And he makes this analogy between the World Wide Web and the Wood Wide Web, and just starts talking about, a lot of us will just say things like the lima bean doesn't know what it's doing. The elephant, we seem to have studied the elephants pretty well. They're incredibly smart. There's a lot of agreement that the elephants know that they're communicating. It's not just random, but the lima bean, right? And then he's talking about with the interconnectivity in the forests, is the Wood Wide Web an intelligence network if they're not aware of the intelligence? And are we fully aware of what we've built on the World Wide Web? So it's this really kind of deep, I don't know what you want to add on that, Marco, but it's this really deep, thoughtful piece about what is technology, and specifically, what is the web, really?
I'm sure
we have no idea what we built, Marco.
Yeah.
Well, no, I have a point here, and then I'm sure Tracy has some points too. But what I got from this is what we've always been saying about technology is human, right? So these plants, these animals, and all of that, they have way to communicate through smell and sound waves under the water that go really far. We don't have that. I mean, we're smart, but we don't have that. So we have built tools to do this. And if you think about technology as an extension of our humanity, then I completely agree from a philosophical perspective with the fact that our technology is an ecosystem that we're developing, because that's how we can communicate faster and farther away. So I want to invite this author to talk about this book on a podcast. That's for sure, because I can live and breathe this for all day long. Tracy, what's your take on this?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't surprise me. I mean, we see this in nature all the time. Ants, the formations. Birds, the formations that they take. That's a form, of organization which they have to communicate. Actually, I have a true bird communication story. At our old house, we used to have a lot of geese uh, hang around. And I remember one morning, I think it was maybe like a Sunday morning. It was real quiet, and it was a beautiful, clear day, and just heard this really loud. I think they were geese, but anyway, it was a bird. Let's just say it was a bird. Anyway, this just very loud, constant calling sound, and I was wondering what was going on and it wasn't like a pleasant bird sound. It was, is there a bird in trouble sort of sound. Long story short, the birds were fine. It's just that one of the birds has gotten lost from their bird friends. So they went up to the highest roof on our block and was calling out and looking around because I was watching all this. And then I noticed that the other birds then gathered the lost bird up and then they went away and the noise stopped. But that I was just fascinated because it was clearly in bird language saying, hey, hey, I'm lost, hey, hey.
Yeah.
And it was very clear. You could just tell by their body language and just the tone and everything. You could just tell it was some sort of cry for help that I'm lost. Because then once it reunited with the other birds, it seemed fine and they all flew away. So it made a big impression on me because there's definitely those interconnected systems with animals that I think we probably should pay attention to more, but maybe the ship has already sailed because we've already been, doing this whole, interwebs thing for a little bit now. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of lessons to learn from nature, uh, you know, plant, flora and fauna about communication and interconnected things. Yes, definitely.
And it's interesting to me that he's starting to, at least I think, because this is the excerpt, I suspect it's trying to draw us into the book, and then there'll be a lot deeper discussion in different areas of the book. But one of the parts of the discussion is that it's partly to human beings set ourselves apart because we think, well, because we can write our language down and therefore share it with each and print it. We thought of all this stuff that somehow makes us better than all the other creatures on the planet. Is that so? I think he's going to kind of dive into that, which is interesting when you think about if we all have to live together and exist on this planet together. Is it useful for us to remember that we're not the most important things? We're part of a bigger whole. And also just in terms of I wonder if he's going to dive a little bit into what happens when you have the power to maybe go faster than how nature would have gone, which is what I think we've done with the internet. Whereas we had, we were good at our own communication among human beings, and we had started to, we could run 26.2 miles to send a message, although I guess the messenger died at the end of that, but not anymore with marathons. We sort of had these different ways that we communicate out, but now we really have amplified that back to your point, Tracy, of earlier about we're getting tweets that look from all over the world that look like, is this real? Is this not? It's confusing. We're trying to figure out what's what. Maybe the internet, and maybe because this is like the last part, it's a history and a warning, right? Maybe that's his warning, is as we got a little bit ahead of ourselves because nature tends to evolve slowly with these abilities to communicate and amplify. Did we get sort of too far? And maybe that's now causing some of the problems with disinformation that we're seeing. Because remember back, there was a time when early in the internet where there was thinking disinformation would end because you couldn't spread propaganda and say X is happening here because here are all the people with their phones taking pictures and video and audio recording. Right, like decades ago, that was one of the things that got posited, and now here we are. And we're seeing that, and we've seen different examples of it. But right now we're seeing yet another example where it, rather than everybody going, we know we can get the ground truth, we're still struggling to understand ground truth.
And I don't think we anticipated encrypted channel communications like
Oh, yeah.
Signal or WhatsApp. A lot of I've looked in. I've done research in this area. A lot of specifically COVID disinformation or misinformation or malinformation has been spread through WhatsApp groups or Telegram groups or things like that, and which have maybe some degree of public exposure, but basically you have to be invited into the group, or if it's a strictly private family group and things are being passed around. But the other thing that I find interesting is I love, I say this sarcastically, how some people think that this whole misinformation, disinformation, malinformation, because they are, three separate entities, is a fairly new thing. This has been going on for, you know, probably since we all first started speaking and writing. It's just that, for example, when I grew up, when I was a kid back in the 80s, a million years ago, yeah, now some of the things that I was told or passed along to me, we didn't really have necessarily an easy way to fact check because we didn't have the internet. um, and sometimes things weren't really fact checkable. It would just be things that would be
Yeah.
passed down. You'd be at a family event and somebody would say something, um, or you'd hear things at school, and maybe I remember that our only recourse really was to ask an adult to verify it. But I mean, if they weren't, I mean, seriously, that's what I remember doing, like
Depends on the adult, right?
asking an adult. But yeah, and then when you're a kid, you don't really know any better. But yeah, in hindsight, like, well, the
Yeah,
adult
my
could have.
dad said that. So
Yeah,
shut up.
exactly. Yeah.
No, you shut up.
Yeah, exactly. So if it was a parent, then you would defend it. So yeah, it's not that any of this is new. It's just that it's more prevalent and it's faster, which
Yeah.
makes it, in my opinion, more
Yeah.
dangerous.
Yeah.
And yeah, now that we know that anything can be doctored, text or photos or anything. So I totally get to what you're saying. I could totally see how people saying, oh, well, there's so much proof out there with camera phones that people can get more truth out there. Well, that turned out to be false, right? Because people can, manipulate that, or they can also choose to look at things differently. Like we were saying earlier with the hashtags. You could read things
Yeah.
different ways and mean it. So, yeah, I think that probably, if I'm going to guess here, it was maybe the biggest surprise of just kind of to society in general, of how quickly now our telecommunication networks can spread the MDM, the malinformation, just so quickly, and
Yeah.
how often it is presented as real information because it can be made to look that way. And
Yeah.
yeah, that's really frightening, and it's hard to fight, because like I mentioned earlier, when you try to bring it up to someone, they I've more often than not, people get really defensive about it. They either don't want to be told they're wrong, and that's why you have to be very careful how you present it to them, because it's not like you're trying to tell them they're wrong. It's just that, well, here is the correct information, or they'll just dig in their heels because they believe so strongly
Yeah.
about it. So
Yeah.
I don't have any answers, other than I just try to ask people to verify sources, or just catch yourself. I actually did a mea culpa, I think last night I did it, or this morning or yesterday. Time has no meaning to me anymore. I don't remember time. I tweeted something about Leonardo DiCaprio donating $10 million to the Ukrainian army because his grandmother's Ukrainian. And again, the source that I saw it from originally, I thought that was a reliable source. And I did do some supplemental research to try and see if there was any other chime in about it. And I didn't really find anything, which in hindsight should have been my red flag.
Mm.
But this is what happens when you tweet at 11 o'clock at night, which is also why I try not to tweet late at night anymore. I never want to tweet after midnight. Nothing good happens on Twitter after midnight, whatever time zone you're in.
Absolutely.
Whatever, it
Yeah.
doesn't matter what time zone you're in. If it's after midnight where you are, nothing good happens on Twitter. Maybe social
Yeah.
media in general, but specifically Twitter. So,
Yeah.
long story short, I remember my tweet was saying, well, why aren't we talking about this? Like, I would have thought people would have been talking about it. Well, people weren't talking about it because it's not necessarily true. It's very fuzzy. So he does have a Ukrainian grandmother. she was technically born in Ukraine, moved to Germany, so maybe was more considered of German nationality, but not heritage. And allegedly he was close to her, but again, it's hard to tell because when it comes to celebrity gossip, I don't really know how you really find good resources for that. And he did give money, so again, I think somebody kind of took all these bits and pieces, and allegedly the original site to post it is some Czech Republic site, which I did go to and didn't see anything. So again, I made a mea culpa on Twitter. It's like, look, I messed up. I thought this was right. And again, I didn't think it was any harm because it seemed like it was positive. But again, I'm human. And I came clean, like, look, doesn't seem to be true. There seems to be bits of truth. So here's information, go make your own deduction. And yeah, and that just was a lesson for me. And I don't mind sharing that because I'm not trying to say that it's easy to do this and that no one's infallible about putting out information. So I don't mind sharing my failures because I want people to understand that it's something we all have to keep working on. And it's easy. It's so easy to get caught up in stuff.
Sure is.
Well,
Yeah.
I'll quickly say, I mean, you're touching on so many things here, Tracy. I mean, just the depth, the breadth, the scale, the speed. I mean, there's so much information. You talked about multiple parts. Each one individually might be true. Connect them together, and they make bullshit. Right? And it all comes to, for me, two different things. What's the intent of the collection of that information and the presentation of it? And then what are the checks and balances? And this is where it's interesting for me is I think we can accelerate technology to get information, pull it together, share it, talk about it, have feelings about it. But I don't know that we have the checks and balances to follow suit there. I think we're kind of left on our own. And Tracy, kudos to you. I mean, you took the time after to go back and put that message out there. I don't know how many other people do that. I mean, they do the post, they do the retweet, they're on to the next thing, and who cares, right?
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, I mean, well, and it means much to me, and I feel like I have a personal responsibility that if I'm going to be giving these conference talks of telling people some best practices, well, I better practice what I preach, and that means failures too, and where I messed up. And I did think about it. I did have the first thought of I should just delete the tweet, but then I thought, well, that doesn't really solve anything because you already put the information out there. Sure, the tweet will go away, but screen caps last forever. Right. And I didn't want to hide anything. I messed up. So that's when I decided, all right, how am I going to go about this? So that's why I took that approach, because I was just trying to think of what's the most responsible way, in my opinion, to address this. And that's how I did that. So thank you for that. I'm just, like I said, I'm just trying. And something you said actually just reminded me. I liken a lot of this. Have you ever seen the cooking show Chopped, where they give you a basket full of food? I kind of feel like that's a good analogy for misinformation and disinformation and things like that, because like you were saying, like you can pull things from different places. Yeah, you can pull liverwurst and strawberry preserves together in a dish. Does that necessarily make it a good dish?
Right.
Like it's that kind of thing. Like you open up, you're on Chopped, you open up the basket, and there's all these like fakakta things thrown together, and you're supposed to make
scorpion lollipop.
Yeah, you're supposed to make something from it. And sometimes it's a success, right? Sometimes, you're blown away. But yeah, other times, yeah, you get some really crazy combinations or unsavory combinations. And I feel like that's kind of the same thing with all this information. When you start pulling Frankensteining or Frankenstein's monstering information, if you're pulling things from different places and slapping it together and calling it the truth or calling it a dish, you're either going to get chopped or you're going to, have the monster run loose. So, wow, I need to remember that for a future talk. I think I like that whole imagery there.
Yeah. Well, that's why I brought up the intent piece. And I don't know if we just think of fire as technology, right? It probably took us a lot of tries to figure out how to start it, how to keep it, how to use it. And when we burnt ourselves, we thought, Okay, we're not going to do that way again. Right? We'll try something different. And I just don't know, unless it's in the healthcare space where perhaps somebody's life is in jeopardy because of misinformation or something. I just don't think we have the checks to say, ooh, that hurt, right? Because when does it hurt? And does it hurt us or does it hurt somebody else? And do we care enough about somebody else that we hold that check back? I don't know.
And I feel like that's a great segue to, if you don't mind, because I'm keeping an eye on the time here, if I can bring up my article, because I really wanted
Yes,
to
please.
bring this up. I apologize. I feel like I've been like taking control of the whole conversation.
No, please.
You're a
That's
guest.
why otherwise people always hear us blubbing. So, at least they're making some really good points.
Great, thank you.
Like we do.
So the article I wanted to mention, I believe it's actually from 2019. It's from DW, which is German for, somebody help me here, is it Deutsche Welle or something like that? But anywho, I just want to again give the citation of what I'm looking at here. So it's the topic of digital colonialism. So the title of this article is Digital Colonialism, Cheap Internet Access for Africa, but at what cost? And I wanted to mention that as my starting point of what I wanted to talk about today is I don't think that this is an area that enough people are concentrating on, is Africa as a whole, as far as technology and cybersecurity goes. And the digital colonialism is a really interesting aspect to it. And that's just one part of it, because then followed up with the same publication has an article from today saying Russia's re-engagement with Africa pays off. And that's kind of what I'm talking about. Is so Africa is, as a continent, is really ripe for positive development, for information, for cybersecurity, for technology, but it's also really susceptible, and it's already been going on for years, for some negative influences and investment and things like that. There's a lot of Chinese investment in Africa. I know that there's also a lot of Russian integration into Africa. So specifically when it comes to cybersecurity and students and professionals, I do a lot of mentoring of African students and cybersecurity professionals. It's a really kind of a tinderbox there. You have a group of really intelligent, smart, willing, eager to learn people that could either learn their technology and hacking skills for the good side or for the bad side. And I don't think enough attention. I unfortunately, I think a lot of, shall we say, maybe some unsavory influences are maybe pumping more money into that than the influences for good. And that's where you come up with then the Yahoo boys and other scammers like that, because they can't really make money any other way than through through black hat hacking. And I'm not excusing that. I'm not saying that they have a right to do that, but I'm just saying I think if we put some more positivity and encouragement, then that can try to help combat all of that. So that's just something I'm really passionate about. And I feel like there's a whole world of tech and cybersecurity going on in Africa that people just don't know. So that's why I created my own newsletter that I put out every few weeks, of just a roundup of African news stories that deal with tech or cybersecurity, because it's just really interesting. There's a lot going on there, and there's a lot more that could be done. So that was what I wanted to talk about today, which also kind of ties into all these other things that we're talking about. Because again, Africa has, so much flora and fauna that they can also learn a lot of lessons, about, about how the animals or the plants act, and relate that to technology or their own organization and things like that.
Anybody? I have opinions, so.
Well, the first thing, and I thought maybe we did a podcast on a book called Manipulated, but as you know, my memory's crap. But I just think it kind of goes back to the other point, which you noted, Tracy. I think there's what's the intent, and everybody may not be malintent, but it may be selfish intent, where this is what I believe, or this is the outcome that I'm trying to drive toward, and this tweet, this retweet, this this way to help these people make money to support my business, whether it's legitimate or not, that those things are going to happen. And yeah, I don't know how do we get across the barrier from investments in malintent or biased intent to good intent. And what is good intent? I mean, everybody has
No,
their
for
own
sure. Yeah, I mean,
opinions on that.
it's definitely a Sisyphean task for sure. But I mean, personally, I'm trying to just focus on the individual or the small groups. That's why I get involved with like Cyber Safe Foundation in Nigeria. I'm a mentor for their Cyber Girls group, or I just talk to individuals. There's a Kenyan group I also work with called Wentors. So yeah, you're right. I'm trying to approach this of a more grassroots sort of way of let's deal with individuals and and small groups, because there's so much stacked against them. A lot of corrupt governments, again, and then a lot of companies, maybe giving off that they're trying to be charitable, but maybe it is all just about their self-interest. So it's complicated, but I just feel like we're not really paying enough attention to, and that could be said for other regions of the world too. But this is just the one area that I particularly just really fell in love with helping. And I went there in 2018. I went to South Africa in 2018, and there's a lot of advancements that need to be made there. Banking by SMS text is still very much common in Africa, which and then also the rise of digital currency, cryptocurrency, and then you have the SIM jacking and SIM swaps and things like that. So, people who may not have a lot of money to begin with could then easily have it stolen from a SIM jacker. So it's just like how do they ever get ahead with all this? So I just think there's a lot of opportunity there for people to to kind of level up, and that's all I'm trying to do, is just try to do my best to create a more level playing field for them. And yeah, it's just a lot. I just wish more people would look into it and even just read about it to understand the opportunities and struggles in Africa as far as tech and cybersecurity goes.
Yeah, and one of the things about certainly with finance in any country where a large majority of the citizens don't have significant assets is that it's not unusual, and where there's a lot of distribution among the more dense areas, it may not be possible for people to bank at traditional financial services
Hmm.
institutions. Their entire life savings may be $200. So, because I remember this was a concern with M-Pesa years and years ago, that people that M-Pesa was, it's not a standard financial institution, that you don't have sort of the same kinds of checks and balances. And what happens if somebody's $200 goes missing? And to some people, it sounds like, well, who cares? It was $200. Well, this was their entire life savings, and they didn't have any other option to save their money because they couldn't walk the 10 miles to the bank, and that was the closest, and the fees would have gotten to them anyway at such a low investment rate. So yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think that it's really also who's investing and who's trying to control the message, and how are we protecting these people that are desperately trying to protect their assets that they've worked so hard for, and not allow them to. And I'm not saying that all because any kind of fintech or DeFi is necessarily bad. It's just that we do have to also put in place some protections for the people that are putting their entire life savings into some of these systems.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, it's definitely a whole different way of handling banking and tech there. Something that really just made a big impression on me is one of my mentees told me one time about how she stays up all night. And I was wondering if it was a miscommunication or something. Long story short, because the Wi-Fi is better when everyone's sleeping. So she'll nap during the day, but will stay up all night to do her schoolwork for university. And that just broke my heart. I mean, And that's to her, but that's just that's how she copes is, well, like I can't get anything done during the day because the Wi-Fi is so bad, but it's great at night. So I just make up for it by taking multiple short naps during the day. And oh, it just broke me. And and there's nothing I can do about it. That's where she is. And um so I just so then I just adjusted then. So 9 o'clock at night my time, I know that it's 3 a.m. for her, but I know she was up. So I would send her, for example, like she couldn't watch videos until the middle of the night because of the bandwidth. So I then adjusted my behavior of sharing things with her, that I would share them at a time when I knew it was the middle of the night, her time, knowing that I wasn't waking her up, knowing that that's when she had good bandwidth to watch things. So that's how I kind of changed my behavior, because there were definitely times because I would try to send her instructional videos or things to help her with her learning. That's the kind of stuff I was sending her. And so I adjusted when I was sending it so that it was optimal for her. But yeah, that's a lot of what a lot of people have to live with. There is just, or a lot of times I would have meetings or set up meetings with my mentees, and I wouldn't hear from them. And it's not that they stood me up, it's that there was a power outage and their phones ran out. So once they were back online, they would send me these very apologetic messages. I'm so sorry. We had a 6-hour power outage. My phone died. I couldn't contact you. So, so it's just patience on my end. If I don't hear from them, and when we have a set up time to talk, I know it's never been a case that anyone's forgotten. It's always been power outage. And I'm like, I understand. So I don't get mad or anything. Just okay, let's just when would you like to reschedule? And just to understand that things operate differently there.
Yeah, we sure tend to forget that. We think everybody is, and we get pissed because I don't know, instead of 1 gigabyte down, I get 600, and I'm like, damn it! I mean, hello. But no, those are all great points, and I know we have to wrap here because we are at the hour. I mean, a fantastic conversation because it went from the communication, the concept of propaganda, the concept of cultural influence, and how that can be done with the digital mean as well. Like I can give you access, but you have to use my product. I'm thinking, or my social media. I'm not going to put a name of a company to it. And how we need to think in this way for everyone. And maybe I agree with the wood wide web, where the problem comes because we always want more and we always find a way. I'm really impressed by when you said that we could kill fake information or propaganda because now we have the fact check, and then we had to create fake video and fake everything. And so that would have been perfect. I mean, the original idea of the internet for me, it was awesome. And now, not so much. But let's see if we can put it back in the can a little bit. So thank you so much, Tracy. Wonderful to have you. You put a lot of different spin into the conversation, so we really appreciate that. Feel free to come back anytime you want. Just let us know. Always welcome. And Sean, I'll see you next week. Diana as well. So stay safe. No, not next week. She's shaking the hand. Okay. Well, I won't see you next week. We'll see someone else. All right. See, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out.
The show will be there. Somebody will be on. Tracy was on this week. Thanks, Tracy.
Yes. Thanks
so much for
everybody
listening. And we'll catch you next time.
Blue Lava is the first business platform for CISOs to manage their security program. Blue Lava guides security leaders to effectively measure, optimize, and communicate their security program with confidence and ease in one platform. Learn more at bluelava.net. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Through the Tech Vine podcast. If you learned something new and this podcast made you think, then share itspmagazine.com with your friends, family, and colleagues. If you represent a company and wish to associate your brand with our conversations, sponsor one or more of our podcast channels. We hope you will come back for more stories and follow us on our journey. You can always find us at the intersection of technology, cybersecurity, and society.